All right, welcome everyone to the Validator community discussion. We've got exciting agenda today. So some Validator updates, I'll do those pretty quick. Then Anatoly is going to talk about a blog post he made about testing and release and all the initiatives that we're doing to kind of harden how we're shipping software. And then at the end, Jito is going to talk about an article they wrote about some spam findings that they have on the network. So first update, which you were already talking about in chat, Solana's birthday today. So happy 3rd birthday, Solana. The first block on mainnet was March 16th, 2020. Congrats. I just want to say I've been here for a little over a year now, and so much stuff has shipped in that amount of time. So it's pretty amazing the progress that's happened since we launched. I'll put up the chat here real quick. Cool. Yeah, the main validator update for this week is about Testnet. So Testnet was restarted and downgraded to 1.13.6. Make sure you are running 1.13.6 just because that's what we're trying to do with this test. So if you're not on 1.13.6, then we can't really test the upgrade process correctly. Also a note, if you use no incremental snapshots during the restart, make sure to remove that flag and restart your node. Otherwise, you won't be saving incremental snapshots. So please, please, please remove that and restart your node if you haven't done that already. Any questions on that? Still happy birthday in the chat. Awesome. All right, cool. I'll kick it off to Anatoly. He's going to talk about this article that he wrote and answer some questions.
Hey guys, yeah, happy birthday to Solana. So I want to get into the testing differences. I don't know if you guys remember how 1.14 came about. We actually intended for this code to be released as 1.11, and that was I would say around July or August last year. But it was taking so long for that code base to stabilize that we effectively killed 1.12 and created 1.13, which is 1.10 plus quick changes. And then 1.14 became the rest of the code. So from that timeline, 1.14 has been tested on Testnet basically from that July date. Like all this code has been running and being stress tested. And but I think because of this failure, I think realized that there's some gaps in that testing. So usually we have like kind of leave adversarial testing up to our internal teams kind of doing it ad hoc and researchers submitting bug bounties and things like that. And I think that has left some gaps in the kind of coverage that we need. Like this particular bug took a really long time for us to simulate. Basically, John Singh has been trying it since the crash, and we just got what we thought was the theoretical bug that caused it. We just got it to be actually verifiably triggered in simulation. So these are like really, really gnarly, difficult things and involve a bunch of different components. So part of the changes that we're doing is that like we have an internal adversarial team, a bunch of folks, basically we call it the invalidator. It's going to be a private repo because we don't want other users to use these tools on mainnet. They got to go, build it themselves. But we're effectively going to be stress testing testnet, sending like unexpected, like trying to trigger unexpected behavior. It's actually really, really hard to trigger these kinds of failures. It takes a long time. That test that actually triggered, we were able to verify what we thought was the theoretical failure. It took 4 hours of spamming our test cluster. So it's not like immediate. These things are, like generally, knock on wood, the network is actually pretty stable. But there's these like fluke conditions that I think we really need to spend a lot of time tracking down, and it's going to be a lot of work. And that means we got to tighten that process. So part of that is also we're like inviting folks like Jito, like BlockRoute to run their infra on Testnet too, to make sure that we're much closer to what we expect, like to the real world behavior. And that should hopefully let us catch these bugs much earlier. Also, I think what's really important for us to verify is I think the upgrade process can be much improved. Like, I think the reason for us to downgrade to 113 is that we want to actually test the exact same upgrade we're going to run on mainnet from 113 to 114, run that on testnet, and have testnet actually demonstrate that the upgrade works and then the downgrade works as well. I think that's pretty important. We'll have the full like docs and what happened out once we have all the patches out. So that's probably going to take maybe a couple more weeks, just as like the PRs are getting reviewed and getting tested and all that stuff.
Cool. Thank you, Anatoly. Any questions about that? Yeah, Brian, go ahead.
Are you then going to try to replicate that same issue on testnet? Like try to crash testnet, roll it back, fix it, then roll it forward again? I mean, I realize it's a whole lot of back and forth.
Yeah, we've been actually trying to crash testnet and it hasn't crashed. We've only been able to crash a cluster in like a very isolated one that we hacked up to really try to create that corner case on purpose. It's pretty hard because of like, these are non-deterministic behaviors and really requires that like one random validator maybe was rebooting at the wrong time or something like that. And to force that for us to occur on testnet is really, really hard.
Yeah, just curious. I get it. It's really hard. Yeah, thanks.
Cool. Any other questions? Nope. Okay, cool. Thank you, Anatoly. We'll kick it off to Jito then. So let me, Jito's got this blog post up about some MEV that they investigated, or MEV spam, I should say, that they investigated on mainnet. So I think Lucas is going to talk a bit about that.
Yeah, I have a quick deck to share. Sweet. So yeah, there's a blog post written about the MEV spam happening on Solana. There's a lot of teams that are like working to solve this. Like obviously Labs has put in a lot of work into this with Quick and Priority Fees. Max and Mango are working on some SIMDs and things like that. And we're also working on it with the jito-solana client. So this is basically like how you can make money by reducing MEV spam on Solana. Yeah, I think I've been on this presentation a few times now, so this might be repeating some parts of it, but there's a lot of like MEV spam on Solana. Continues to remain like a big user of block space. I'm assuming that everyone here is familiar with MEV. MEV is essentially the value that can be extracted by like ordering transactions. So on Solana, a lot of the MEV comes from arbitrage. So like I'll send a trade that gets executed on chain. People are listening over shreds or on Geyser or something, waiting to get an account update on like Orca. Everyone sees that trade at a different time, update through Geyser, Orca. All these bots start to like fire off trades, like, someone might fire off a trade like 10 milliseconds after, someone else 11, someone else 12, someone else like 100 milliseconds are all like shooting their priority fees. And yeah, what ends up happening is like a massive failure rate on those. So like on arbitrages, it's currently hovering around a 95% failure rate. And then the percentage of transactions that this takes up over the total number of non-voting transactions. So this is removing votes. It's currently around like 30 to 35%. And so, yeah, I kind of got into like why this is happening. Like ordering is basically a combination of like latency, priority fees, and luck. Right now, spam is like the best option to win these trades, and it's super cheap. And we're actually starting to see some like searcher PvP, where searchers are like locking others' accounts, and like this is something that Max brought to my attention and posted in SMD, but you're seeing like this like PvP start to happen where people are basically wasting compute cycles trying to like slow others down. So yeah, like until now, like these are kind of the only stats that we've had. So recently did an investigation on Epoch 414. Basically to get into like some of the nitty gritty stuff here, like how do we label an arbitrage? An arbitrage is like defined as like a cycle. So basically what we're looking for is like someone trying to swap some currency back to the same currency in the same transaction. It's like USDC to USDC. There's no reason that like a user would do that. Like it's mainly just arbitrage bots trying to go USDC to Sol on like Orca and then Sol to USDC on like OpenBook or something. So our algorithm picks up all that. I looked at every single block. There's 379,000 blocks in that epoch. Basically, 60% of the compute for this epoch was dedicated to arbitrages, and there was a 98% failure rate. So what it ends up working out to is around 58% of all compute for that epoch was wasted by failed arbitrages. So this is just like block space that these failed arbitrages are taking up, just from like trying to spam and like land transactions after like users to arbitrage. So yeah, this is like a main thing that we're focused on at Jito. So right now like spam is the best way to extract MEV on Solana. And with jito-solana, we added the concept of bundles. Bundles essentially let you define like it's like a well-defined ordering of transactions. So I want transaction like A, B, C to execute. They're guaranteed to execute sequentially if they make it to the validator. They execute all or nothing. So if anything fails, the entire thing will roll back. So it's like a really good way for traders to, like I know there's a lot of traders that use like sequence IDs, where like things are, you check the sequence ID and revert, or like Mev traders will just kind of spam to try to land arbitrages. So with bundles, you can basically specify this ordering up front and it's guaranteed to execute in that order. Another thing is like MEV on some chains, it's like limited to like a select few validators that maybe they know how to apply that patch or something like that. And they have the correct contacts to like do MEV for them. With our software, like we want to make that available to every validator. Also, like currently, like MEV isn't really like a knob to attract stake. It kind of just goes into your identity account, and you can make money on that from the priority fees. Where like we want to use MEV to attract stake and kind of use that, like give validators the option to use that as a carrot to attract stake. And I think that you can also use it as like a carrot to like decentralize the network as well. And I think the most important thing is like the inefficient MEV extraction right now on Solana is like kind of clogging DeFi. There's a lot of people that are like right locking Orca or open book markets with like, we want to make it extremely efficient so that there's not that much spamming through the use of bundles. And I think that this will actually like massively increase the liquidity on DeFi. Like if you talk to like market makers and things like that on Solana, landing trades is like a big issue for them. So if we can make landing trades more efficient, then we can bring more liquidity to DeFi on Solana. So yeah, like how do we like, what's the path to adoption? So right now, jito-solana is running on 84 validators, currently builds 16% of all blocks on Solana. The main issue right now is this cold start problem. So, searchers want to use bundles, they want to use these tools, but at 16% of stake, it's kind of like, well, I'm just gonna wait for some more stake to adopt it, or I don't want to spend the time on this if this isn't going to work out. It can take a while for searchers to get this running on their system. On the other hand, validators, I think after talking to some validators, it's we want to see more revenue or more there needs to be more rewards for us to run this. So it's kind of this chicken and egg cold start problem. That's the main thing that we're focusing on right now. Validators, it's I think they're the best position to get this flywheel started. The software will for it to work, it needs to be adopted by validators. And so validators are the best position to get this flywheel started. It only takes 5 minutes to switch over, so it's pretty easy to do it. And then, yeah, I guess for people that aren't super familiar with MEV on ETH, it's very mature on ETH. So you've probably heard of Flashbots. Flashbots released MEV Geth back when it was doing proof of work. Now there's MEV Boost. So 91% of Ethereum blocks are produced by MEV Boost. This is a kind of a chart of the Lido APY, and all the purple stuff is the MEV rewards. So you can see that MEV rewards are increasing the APY by 20%. And then if you look at what happened during the USDC depeg, it was there was a lot of the rewards were increased by over 100% during those few days. And then yeah, it's very mature on Ethereum, and then it's also very efficient. So I think according to Flashbot's website, there's less than 1% of gas, which is Solana's compute unit equivalent, is used for MEV, where on Solana it's 58%. So it's a very mature ecosystem. We know that this is possible. Flashbots is leading the way for this on Ethereum. We're leading the way for this on Solana. I think we know it's possible, and we're I'd love to see the community support this. So yeah, the main thing that validators can do is run jito-solana. Takes less than 5 minutes. There's validators, super small validators to institutions that are running this. Super easy to switch over. The main setup differences are that you have to build from source, which you should do anyway for normal Solana. And then there's 5 new command line arguments that you have to add. So that's just kind of there's different parameters associated with MEV. We have a setup guide linked here that you can run through as well. And then, yeah, we'll share this deck after the presentation. Links to our website, documentation, how to set it up. If you're interested in running it, definitely join our Discord. We're here to help. There's 80 other validators that will help as well. And then, yeah, you can contact Brian via Twitter or email, or tag him in Discord. Cool. That's all I had. Let me see if there's any questions here. See, I'll answer Overclock first, and then Brian Cole, and then Brian Long. So yeah, spamming. I guess spamming is helpful because there's no guaranteed ordering mechanism on Solana, and Solana's not the only one that has this. Polygon, there's a huge spam problem. Ethereum had a huge spam problem before Flashbots, and what you saw is people would bid up they call them priority gas auctions, or PGA, and you can bid up the gas on transactions. So what happened on Ethereum, or just any system, is that people will if they have a goal to order transactions, they will find the best way to do that and push it to the max until it until it's not profitable anymore. It's on Solana, there's basically, or on Ethereum, there's priority gas auctions where people just keep resending their transaction to the mempool with one gas higher than the previous one. On Solana, it's kind of a combination of priority fees and like sending more transactions. Oh yeah, where can a validator see what other nodes are running jito-solana? Yeah, Brian, can you maybe share a link for that in the chat, and then we can add it. I think it's on the documentation as well.
Yeah. Thanks. I was just thinking, like, for your cold start and like adoption question, like,
yeah,
it could be good to effectively decentralize that, right? If you can go on Validators.app or Solana Beach or any of the other validators, you can see like, oh, here's the pie chart of all validators that are running Jito, right? Then instead of anyone needing to come to you necessarily, right, they can be like, oh, my buddy's running Jito, I didn't realize it, let me talk to him, right, and get like an easier, more trusted on-ramp flavor.
Yeah. So yeah, there's some good talk in the chat. Validators.app, you can filter by Jito validators. Manystake, and then I think there's a few others working on it. All the information is like available on chain and like decentralized, so you can actually look on chain and see who's running it. It's just like a PDA that's derived. So yeah, you can. There's more info in the documentation there.
Thanks.
Okay, Brian Cole. I think it's Brian Cole, Brian Long, and then Anatoly.
Yeah, so if I'm just starting out and I have like the foundation allegation, so it's like 50,000 SOL or whatever, is it still worth using the Jito client?
Yeah. So there's like no performance hit by running the Jito client. It's like 99% of the code in there is Solana Labs, and there's a 1-to-1 release between the two. So yeah, I think it's still worth it, and I think that it's just like another differentiator compared to others that maybe aren't running this. Like there have been some validators that have seen more stake inflow from running the client. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Brian Long.
Yeah, so on this problem of people kind of maybe maliciously trying to hit an account right max, and I can even give some people maybe just a relative look at this right now. In the last 1 hour on Block Logic Validator, I dropped 213,000 transactions because it would either exceed the block max or the account max. So 213,000 total, 73,500 were block max. So, we had hit the block CU threshold. The remainder then, just about 140,000, was hitting the account max. How can Jito solve that problem?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the problems are related to MEV. So like you're seeing, basically it's like cheaper for the transaction to execute fully and then revert versus like bailing in the beginning. And you're seeing a lot of traders like just take write locks and like try to do stuff and then revert. And so like basically we give traders like a system that will basically pre-simulate everything ahead of time, and then it will only execute stuff that succeeds and pays the most. And it's a guaranteed ordering mechanism. So by like giving people a guaranteed ordering mechanism and then like simulating that stuff ahead of time before it hits the validator, it kind of takes some of the load off the cluster from the people that are like wasting the compute units.
Yeah, but potentially we still have it if they're not using Jito bundles, right? So
yeah.
Okay, that's where I think the priority fees probably need to fix that problem. But I'll let Anatoly take the floor.
How is this gonna interact with, you think, with like the write lock fees that Mango guys are working?
I think that they're like there's definitely like a little overlap, but I think that the way that I think about the application write lock fee, this isn't like a 1-to-1, but it's kind of like a application base fee. So I think that the stuff that they're working on will definitely help to reduce the load on the cluster for Mango. And then the stuff that we're working on is just like another layer on top to reduce the like amount of stuff that's taking write locks.
Why do you think people are spamming with so many transactions instead of bumping their fee still?
Because I think the ordering mechanism in banking stage, where like each thread has its own kind of priority, and then I just think I guess without getting like too in the weeds, I think it has to do with probably the way that banking stage like orders transactions. And then the fact that like if you have more transactions sitting in the queue, there's a higher probability that you might get processed first.
If I may comment on this a little bit as well, you have someone that's on the searcher side and the validator side. Fee priority is not synchronized across the banking threads in the banking stage, right? And like we've seen this kind of in real time. Like I can submit 10 transactions all at once, all with different priority fees, and the order I see them land in the block is often quite different from the ordering that you would expect from the priority fees. Additionally, I think a lot of searchers don't always know why their transactions are getting dropped, right? There's a lot of reasons and a lot of randomness and a lot of jitter in terms of like why transactions might get dropped. So it's often just if you have some probability of like this transaction is going to get dropped, it probably just makes sense to spam that a few times and hope at least one of them gets through. So I'd say like that, like the not knowing why transactions get dropped, as well as the lack of synchronization of priority fees across banking threads would probably be the main two reasons contributing to spam here.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Ben. Answer your question, Anatoly.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty good insight.
Sweet. Yeah, Chris, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks. I was wondering, are you seeing any significant impact of latency on performance right now? Meaning latency between validators and clusters, the Jito clusters?
Latency as far as like sending trades or?
Well, for example, we were talking earlier, we're in Madrid right now, and I think the closest Jito cluster is Frankfurt. So like, is it better from a performance perspective to be co-located in Frankfurt, or is Madrid okay based on what you're seeing so far? I was curious if you have any empirical evidence right now based on what you've seen so far.
Yeah, we're seeing like 100% success rate today. Like on, or not 100%, but very close to 100% on machines, like anywhere they are. I think closer will be better, but I want to like avoid, like people shouldn't move to these locations like just to get what they think will be like a noticeable improvement. We would like to like, we don't want to end up with more stake in Frankfurt or Amsterdam. So like if you want to see block engines set up in more locations, please let us know. We're also focused on a lot of reliability efforts right now after like expanding pretty fast. So that's like been a main focus for us for Q1, but Q2, it's going to kind of go back into like a little more growth mode. And like, we could definitely set up something in Madrid.
Okay, thanks.
Sweet. Is there any more questions? I'm just skimming through the chat. Feel free to speak up if there's anything. Yeah, Brian.
Yeah, at what point does this make sense to roll into the Solana client?
Yeah, that's a good question. So this is something that we'll probably focus on probably like end of Q2 or Q3. Like how do we, Geyser was an amazing addition with like adding support for custom plugins. I think that this is like another it's kind of like an interesting shift in the way that you can think about making modifications to a validator. So that's something that we're exploring as well. Like how do we get rid of jito-solana and turn it into like the Jito plugin? And then like what hooks do we need to add into the validator to do that? And then also like as FireDancer is quickly approaching, like how do we hook into FireDancer as well through a plugin?
And how do you like still keep your identity? Because if it does get absorbed to Solana, then you won't have the Jito client anymore. But then that kind of would hurt you, I think, as a company. So was there something?
Yeah, I mean, I think like Jito is kind of like a SaaS company. So like most of the like service and value add is on the block engine side. So like, you know, making sure that we're sending the most profitable trades to validators and like doing the best we can to reduce spam. So it's definitely a good point, but I'm not super concerned about it. I think like the easier it is for people to onboard, like I guess building the client from source is like can be like kind of a big learning curve for some people versus just like downloading it. So if we can make it a plugin and make it super easy to install for anyone, independent of like whether they're running the Labs client or FireDancer, then it makes it the reach of it way larger.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, looks like we're running up on time. I'll hand it back to Tim. We'll share this presentation afterwards, and definitely feel free to stop by the Discord. We're happy to help. There's a lot of other like really good validators in there as well that are willing to help. So thanks for the time, Tim, and everyone else.
Cool. Thank you, Lucas. Thank you, Jito. Really good conversation. I appreciate it. I want to bring up, well, I guess, open up the floor for open Q&A. There was a question in MB Validators right before we started about another call that Chris from Chainflow and Max are organizing. So maybe you want to give them a chance to just talk about it for a minute if you're willing and kind of differentiate it a little bit.
Yeah, I can take a shot. Tim and I spoke last week, and you know, we had the call that Max and I helped organize, and we had a lot of really good participation from a lot of different people after the outage back in February, and there are a number of to-dos that came out of that as well. I see fixed mic. Can you guys hear me okay?
It's a little staticky, hard to hear.
Sorry, is Max on? Otherwise, I can take a minute to try and go more quieter or with better acoustics. Yeah, Max, or Dan, do you have something else to go to, and I'll try and find a better place to talk from?
Sure. Yeah, maybe I could give a little background. So there was a community-run post-mortem after the outage. Validators got together and just sort of hashed out what they could do better during a restart. And at first, I think my initial reaction was, why don't we just have this during this call? Because it's a community call where validators should feel empowered to take over and, you know, propose topics to talk about. But after joining that call, I feel like it does actually have a lot of value for validators to sort of self-organize and follow up on topics that I think are useful to them, that are maybe get lost easily in these calls. And for whatever reason, maybe there's some sentiment that people don't want to speak up as much in this call. I don't know if that's true or not, but anyway, I've talked with Chris about it. I think it'd be great to have maybe a monthly call. I think that's what Chris is thinking about, to talk about issues that you all want to work on and maybe organize a little bit around like initiatives that that Chris and the rest of you highlighted in the last call. So that's kind of the background. I don't know if Chris's mic is back or not.
Back. Is this better?
About the same, but you know, I can hear you.
Yeah, well, I guess quickly, yeah, I guess we'll start with the market call. The initial focus will be on following up on the different to-dos that came out of the post-mortem. But then we've also had people suggesting other topics. I mean, the validators channel that we can talk about too, like a minimum fee proposal, mitigating DDoS attacks and things like this. So over time, we can focus on those themes, follow up, I think, to keep it interesting and to keep people engaged and coming back. We can also maybe pick another topic to discuss as well. And, maybe take some of the conversation, or at least supplement some of the conversation that's been happening in the different Discord channels, and be able to, have a persistent place and follow up with some notes and, turn it into something that could be actionable, because there's a lot of good conversation that happens in the channels, but because of everybody being as busy as we are, sometimes things fade away. So maybe this would be a chance for us to catch some of those things too and turn them into something as well along the way. So it's fully intended to be a supplement to these calls and not a replacement. And anybody who'd like to join and is able to join, please do.
Cool. Thank you, Chris. A little hard to hear, but I hope everyone got the gist of that. Essentially, the call will be supplemental to this call. The idea is to follow up on things that are initiatives by validators, for validators that you all want to work on or talk about. And yeah, one other plug for this call, I guess, is the intention of this call is to be open to everyone. So if you're interested in talking about a topic, if you want to propose a topic or you want to present something, please don't feel shy about reaching out to me or just mentioning it in MB Validators. The agenda for this is open, and if anybody has suggestions for ways to make it feel more open for contributions, let me know. That's the goal of this ultimately. Cool. Any other thoughts, questions?
I got a quick comment. Yeah. Otherwise done. Go ahead, Max.
I was just gonna say, I hope you guys can hear me okay, by the way. Yeah, I put a doodle poll in the Discord today, just to try and find the least bad time for us to meet. So far, only Lane and Zantetsu have responded, but I only put options for like next week, so it'll probably be a weekday next week. But I'll definitely try and circulate around like what day it is ahead of time, because yeah, we certainly don't want to have it feel like a closed call or closed session or anything like that. But yeah, thanks Tim for the support. Yeah.
Dan, did you have some?
Oh yeah, I was actually just going to make a quick plug for this role opening that I've talked with a couple of folks here. So apologies for the shameless plug, but I wanted to let folks know. I just pasted a link in the chat. Solana Foundation is hiring for a head of staking ecosystem role. A lot of folks here are engaged validators, are stake pool operators, people touching the infra. The tools are, I think, the people with kind of the most buy-in from around Solana Foundation's position as to our delegation program, our delegation strategies, how we're supporting stake pools, and a lot of things that we're really planning on evolving over the near term. And so just wanted to let you guys know, if anyone here or of anyone in your network that you think would be a good impassioned candidate to sort of help drive a lot of this stuff on behalf of Solana Foundation, we are all ears.
Cool. All right. If there are no other questions or thoughts, oh, Brian, go ahead.
Sorry, lots of questions today.
Yeah, good discussion.
Do you have any updates on the onboarding process? Because I know this, since the outage and transitioning back to 1.13, everything's been a bit paused. Any particular updates on that, and whether there might be some changes to maybe prioritize validators who are on the wait list and maybe are participating more, or anything of that nature?
There's no changes right now to the onboarding process, but it's always something we're thinking about. As far as the sort of lack of onboarding lately, there's been a number of sort of issues that we've been investigating and making onboarding something that we're just not comfortable with. But I've yet to announce it. This week we are onboarding 25, and I think week to week it's always essentially the process is every week we review metrics. We look at how the network's doing. check if there's anything that needs to be investigated. And assuming that those investigations are not too concerning to engineers, then we onboard another 25. So I can't really say that every week we're going to be onboarding 25 from here on out, but that's the plan unless there's an issue.
Of course, yeah, that makes total sense. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Great discussion. Thank you, everybody, and happy birthday, Solana.
Thanks, everybody.